Hey guys, Bartel's Bookshelf here with yet another tag video from the masterful Trashy Criminale. And this is, very fittingly, this is the Trashy Books tag, which I was so graciously tagged in. And of course, with GARBAUGUST coming up, I wanted to do something to sort of commemorate the occasion, so I thought this would do really well. This was one that I had to spend a little while thinking about because obviously trash is a very subjective term. One man's trash is another man's treasure. And the word trash often has sort of a negative connotation to it, which I feel that Ollie and GARBAUGUST and the GARBAUGUST event are kind of trying to sort of rehabilitate, which is something I really appreciate. And so that kind of forced me to sort of think about what trash means in this context, and to sort of see, because when I think of trash, I think of something that just has no merit at all. But something can have merit even if it is very trashy in terms of the subject matter or the writing or whatever, which is what this whole event is supposed to get us thinking about. And that's something I appreciate, and it gave me a lot to think about, and it was tough to answer a lot of these questions, but hopefully you'll find it interesting. So the first question is, trashy books are often dismissed by the critics. What's a book which is regarded as trash which you think has artistic value? This was tough for me to pick a specific book, especially because I think a lot of the stuff that I read is considered trash, especially when it comes to extreme horror and stuff like that, and fantasy novels and stuff. But just to sort of have something, I decided to go with I don't have the first book because I sold it. I finished it and I sold it to half price, which I do usually every time I finish something, unless I really want to keep it. But this is the second book in the Legend of Drizzt series by R.A. Salvatore, and I just recently read the first book in this series, and I really enjoyed it. And I do think that, being that these books are tie-in novels, they're D&D, Forgotten Realms things. They're very traditional sort of high fantasy type stuff. I do think generally they would be considered quite trashy, but I think that there is something to be said for that. I think that specifically this series, at least the first book anyway, it was fun, it was exciting, it was well written, the characters were well drawn. It was just it was a good time, and I could see how they've developed such a strong fan base over the years. And I think there's something to be said for that. There's something to be said for just being entertaining and just being well done and interesting and fun. And that's something that I've been kind of learning to appreciate more over the years, especially in recent years, to appreciate things that are just kind of entertaining and fun, and not really trying to be anything deep or complex or interesting. Not that I'm putting down these books, obviously. I really enjoyed it, so much so that I have the first 9 books, I think, and I enjoyed them enough that I want to keep going and see how the series turns out. But I think a lot of this sort of cheapy paperback fantasy in general is considered quite trashy, but I think that there is a lot to be said for that stuff, for that genre. If you're willing to look, if you're willing to explore, you can find a lot of really fun, fascinating, interesting things with artistic merit. So yeah, that's how I would answer that. Question 2 is the opposite. Critics often love books with extreme or challenging content. Which critically praised book did you think was trash? Again, this was tough for me because, when I hear trash in this context, I think, just something that I thought was bad that had no merit. But I think in this context, it's more asking about a critically praised book that I thought had trashy elements. And in that sense, it was very tough to come up with something. Because there's definitely lots of critically praised books I've read that I thought were just crap. I remember in school I really hated All Quiet on the Western Front by Eric Maria Remarque. I just thought it was dull and boring and repetitive, and just did this repetitive thing where it contrasted scenes of sort of repetitive army life with scenes of violence, and I understood what it was trying to do, but I didn't think it really was all that interesting or successful. So I guess you could count that. Yeah, I don't know. This one was tough to think of, because I was trying to think of like critically praised books that have like trashy elements, and I can't think of any that I really would categorize like that off the top of my head. In Ollie's video, he mentioned Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho, and while I do see that as having a lot of trashy elements, I do think it also has artistic merit. So I didn't really know if I would put that one in. So I don't know. I guess maybe I'll have to return to this question in the future. I don't feel that I'm experienced enough in this world to really say. So I'm sorry if that's kind of a disappointing non-answer, but that was the best I could do. Question 3 is, not everyone approves of trashy books. What's a book you wouldn't read in public? To be honest, I don't really care about stuff like that. I'll read whatever in public. I mean, I'm not out in public much in the first place, but yeah, like when it comes to being out in public, like I don't care. I'll read whatever. I mean, maybe if I was reading something like really fucked up, like if I was reading, I don't know, Mein Kampf or something like that, I don't know if I'd want to be flashing that around in public. But generally, I'm not. I don't worry about things like that. I mean, I've read like romance novels in public. I've read like cheapy fantasy stuff in public. I really don't think about that kind of stuff. So that's just me. Books about killer animals are almost always trashy. What animal would you least like to be attacked by? Well, I wouldn't want to be attacked by pretty much any animal, but in terms of the animals that freak me out the most, I'm a huge arachnophobe, so I would really hate to be attacked by spiders, especially giant spiders, or just any kind of spider, really. I can't stand them, little creepy crawlies. I fucking hate them. I know they're important for the ecosystem, and that's great, and they can go be important for the ecosystem over there. So yeah, but I don't know of any, sort of on that subject, I don't know of any books off the top of my head about spiders, any like killer animal books involving spiders. So if you guys know of any, let me know. I'd like to read them and see if they trigger my arachnophobia. Trashy books often flourish in specific genres. What's your favorite trashy subgenre? I'm gonna borrow this from Michael K. Vaughan. He said his favorite trashy subgenre was sword and sorcery, and after thinking about it, I would agree with that. That's up there too. I love a really good sword and sorcery story, just something that's, like muscular and exciting and entertaining, and just, barbarians and warriors and, sword and sorcery, dark magic, and, I love that sort of stuff when it's done well. And of course, Robert E. Howard is the shining example of that. So yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, as I said with this, I think that sort of that general vibe of like, paperback fantasy novels, 20th century, mid to late 20th century stuff, the sort of stuff like you go to a bookstore, you browse the fantasy section, you see tons of, cheapy fantasy paperbacks. I think there's a lot to be said for a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of stuff in there that appeals to me. I just love a good, solid, traditional fantasy book, I think. The next one is, famous people love to milk their fans by publishing books. Which celebrity would you like to read a trashy novel by? This one was also tough for me to think of because I don't really think about celebrities in terms of like I don't really worship a lot of celebrities. Like, all right, not worship. That's not the right. I'm not the type to like buy a book just because it's written by a celebrity. The only stuff that I could think of in terms of celebrities were like people in other artistic mediums. Like, I would love to read a novel by Edgar Wright. He's one of my favorite directors. I really love how he merges drama with comedy and sort of grindhouse, exploitation genre film with sort of like very serious, sort of almost art cinema vibes. I think if he wrote a novel, I would really like to see that. And a lot of other, I really can only think of like film directors and stuff like that I would want to read novels by. And a lot of the film directors I would want to read novels by have already written novels. Like Quentin Tarantino recently published his novelization of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I still have to read. And David Cronenberg published his novel Consumed, which I really loved. So it was difficult for me to answer, but I guess in terms of film directors / artistic people that haven't released novels yet, I would love to see Edgar Wright write a novel. I think Terry Gilliam could write a really interesting novel. Just anybody like that. Trashy books have the best covers. Which book on your shelves has the trashiest cover? This was really difficult for me because while I have a lot of sort of like I guess what people would call trashy paperbacks. I have a lot of old like sci-fi and fantasy like paperbacks and stuff. It was tough for me to find stuff that I thought was trashy. You know what I mean? So I picked 4 here. These were the best that I could find on my shelves, and some of these I actually bought specifically for GARBAUGUST. But the first here is Conan of Aquilonia by L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter. This is an Ace paperback that was published in 1977. I haven't read it, but I've had this beat up old paperback for a while, and I mean that's just very classic, trashy fantasy stuff, isn't it? You know, big muscular warrior and a monster. All that's really missing is a big-breasted woman. But yeah, that's pretty trashy, I would say. Who painted this? I actually don't know. It looks like Boris Vallejo right there. So yeah, there you go, Boris Vallejo. So who's involved with a lot of trashy books, a lot of trashy covers. So I have this Blood of the Impaler by Jeffrey Sackett, which is a vampire novel from 1989. I've heard a lot of things about this. It sounds pretty trashy. And you know, indeed, that cover is pretty trashy. You know, pretty vampire lady. You know, sexy. Yeah, you know, glossy covers. So yeah, I would say that's pretty trashy. These two are some of my actual picks for GARBAUGUST. This one which was inspired by Ollie. This is Phoenix #1, Dark Messiah by David Alexander. I mean, this is just quintessential 80s machismo, isn't it? You know, big buff blonde guy with a gun. Big, screaming Phoenix, burning city in the background. I mean, what more do you need to know? So yeah, that's probably one of the trashiest ones I have. And of course, I have a lot of romance novels, which really you could lump any of these in here, but this is a specific one that I've chosen for GARBAUGUST called Wicked Pleasure by Nina Bangs, a novel of paranormal desire. Yes, her name is Nina Bangs, and this is about a guy named Bryn McNair, who's a cursed demon of desire driven to fulfill women's erotic needs. So obviously that sounds pretty trashy, and of course the cover is very traditional romance novel-esque, you know, just a male torso on the cover, not even a face. So yeah, those are probably some of the trashiest covers I have around. I'm sure I have more, but I would have to dig through my shelves to find them. That was just what I had on hand. Trashy books often contain adult themes. What's a book you read before you were old enough to? See, that's tough because my parents never really monitored my reading. They never really cared what I read, and I wouldn't really, because even when I definitely got into horror films when I was a little bit young. I got into horror films when I was like 12. But I wasn't really reading a lot of adult novels at the time, I don't think, because for a good long while I wasn't reading as much as I used to. It became more, my interests drifted more towards film and stuff like that, and that became kind of my main interest for a really long time. So by the time I was getting back into reading and reading actual adult like explicit books, you know, with like sex and violence and stuff, I was an adult, or at least an older teenager. So like I don't really think that that applies to me, unfortunately. I would have liked to have read more trashy books when I was younger, but oh well. Number 9 is, if you were a character in a shifter romance, what creature would you want you or your partner to shift into? I mean, this is an easy one. I probably don't even need to say. Everyone who knows me knows. I love werewolves. If I could make Aaron a werewolf, if some genie or fairy came to me and said, hey, you know, I'll grant you any wish you desire, I'd be like, make my partner a werewolf, please. I'm a freak like that. I love werewolves. I have ever since I was a kid. They're my favorite monster, and I'd like to snuggle up to one. So that's all I'll say on that. And then finally, tag the trashiest booktubers you know. Well, a lot of people that have done this tag, or who are interested in this tag, are people that are already involved in the community, or people that have already been tagged in other videos. So if you're watching this video, tag you're it. But I will specifically tag my friend Nakia over at Plot Twist, because I really want to see what she has to say to these questions, and I think she'll have an interesting perspective to bring. And so yeah, that was my Trashy Books tag. Thank you again, Criminali, for tagging me. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you for encouraging all of us to think more about trash and what trash means, and to engage in more trashy reading material. I really look forward to GARBAUGUST, and I hope a lot of other people, a lot of you, will be joining in with me with reading some trash. And yeah, let's go. This should be awesome. I really look forward to it. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, do all the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.